Yeah, I um, I like to talk about sadness and what I experience with sadness, and I would be interested how you experience your relationship to sadness, or individually in you, or also sadness collectively, or in society, in community, in friendship, in partnership, in intimate relationship. How do you experience the emotion of sadness? How do you experience the energy of sadness? How do you deal with it? What are you doing with it? How do you approach it? How are you being with it? Um, I mean, for me, emotions are so fascinating. And I would say I'm a very deep feeling person. As I maybe mentioned in some other videos, I don't know that much about astrology, but if I have someone who gives me a good reading, there are some people, they really, especially one where I choose to have readings with, I just learn so much, and I just see myself so much in it. So I have 3 water signs where it's said, that it's a lot of feeling, a lot of emotions. So I can get dragged into my emotional world so easily and so naturally. And for me, it to operate and function also in a world where I'm in service for other people. And I love my work, and I chose my work to feel also with other people and to guide other people through their experiences and challenges. And if I work with plant medicine, or if I work in other mentoring, coaching situations, or before in the past, I worked in therapeutic and pedagogical educational institutions or places. I always love to work with people, holding space and guiding people. But also this means for me, if I'm in my own deep emotional worlds and feelings, I need to find ways where I'm not driven by my emotions, where I'm feeling my emotions, where I'm honest to myself, where I make space for them, but also where they are not dominating me, especially when I'm working or need to function in certain ways. So um, for me, growing up with a mother who also felt a lot, but she didn't do therapy or any other work to heal her wounds and her traumas. So her emotions were often through the unawareness and unaware filters, where was a lot of pain and a lot of hurt and some neediness from her own childhood wounds, which she never addressed and just is not aware about. So I was in an emotional field which was not clean and clear with my mom. And with my dad, it was more, I think when he was very little, it was very painful for him. So he more disconnected from emotions. Like his relationship to his emotions were more like avoiding or more distancing, or he was like more in the mental controlling. I need to control my emotions. But also I think it came more from an unaware place, just how his childhood shaped him. So I feel I grew up. I experienced a lot of safety around with my parents, for sure, and I'm very grateful for that. But also the depths of my feelings, the depths of my emotions, and how do I approach my emotions? How is my relationship to emotions, and the work what we need to do to be clearly connected to our emotions and not mixing it up with anything else, I had to do later on in my life. And just let's say the last years. I'm now 41, so let's say the last 5 6 years. um, and what I see is that I also really did so many things in my life to control my emotions, because when I was a teenager, when we get in puberty, and emotions, hormones get even stronger. It was so tough for me. It was so strong. There was, now looking back, in that time I was not aware, I think, but looking back, there was so much fear. Fear of not being loved, fear that the boys don't like me, that they all love the other girls, fear of not getting through school, fear of failing, fear of being not looking good for others, fear of not saying the right thing, and fear of not finding my path in life. Then there was a lot of sadness, a lot of sadness. I mean, teachers sometimes, I know my dad told me once also, or at least once, a teacher asked my parents if they have any problems at home. I'm so serious and I seem sad. And yeah, it was, my dad was reflecting a lot about it, because he was yeah, he was or he still is, very reflective and open in communication with me. Um, and there was a lot of pain, because also my parents separated. Also, there were some abusive situation which I had as a child, with a man. I had um, like instrument lessons, let's say, um, and there was a lot of more pain on deeper layers. So since I'm a teenager, looking back, I did so much to control my emotions. I mean, I started smoking weed very early. I started to use any kind of other drugs who gives me different emotions very early, like watching TV, meeting friends. What also is beautiful. I had beautiful friends in the circle of friends. Buying things, shopping, later on a lot of shopping, sweets, chocolate, food, going out, partying was like a very intense time for me. Like from with 14, I think with 14 I went the first time, and the first my first techno club, and then it was almost every weekend since then until beginning of 30s. There were some times I was traveling a lot in the world, and I also was working on a ship. There was less partying, but still, I mean, and partying was also great. But there was a lot of, in my case, a lot of controlling my emotions. And I never really was just sitting with what I feel in my body and how it is. Never until, like, let's say 5, 6 years ago, or 7 years ago, or 8 years ago. I think my journey to go inward started with around 32, 33. So it's a little longer, yeah. And maybe good to come to the point, what I want to share today about sadness. I still find in myself this judgment of when I meet other people. I don't want to seem sad. I feel sadness sometimes carries this heaviness, this hopelessness. It carries like this energy of sitting in a hole, and I only want to be there. I don't want to go out. And I feel it's for other people uncomfortable, and I have this thing, oh, I need to change that before I go out, or I judge myself, oh, you have again this sadness, you need to let go of it. When is it over? Like a part of me wants to end it. And then I'm also learning, like, hey, being with the sadness with compassion and really sitting with it. But then I need my time and I want to be by myself, and really nourishing myself in a way, like having a cacao, with some maca and some healthy stuff in it, and drinking it, but not to distract, to drink it and feel the sadness and sit with the sadness. And, also the root causes, the memories. Why am I sad? And for me, in my case, right now, the strongest is like letting go of a man, letting go of a relationship, being in since a few weeks in the process of separation, um, and having all these memories and letting go that this was not what I thought it is, or it didn't go in the direction I wished. We didn't manage, we didn't heal. heal the things which were in the way and blocking us, and not changing certain patterns in order to be in harmony and in alignment together. Um, and like really sitting with all of that, and feeling myself and feeling compassion. And I feel that's something very new, and also something very beautiful, where there's a lot of love and compassion and warmth, and like being my own mother, and soothing myself, and allowing me to cry, and then there is this trust also. Hey, it will pass. It will pass. You will cry now, and you will cry, and at some point, it's moved, and it's more empty. There's not anymore so much pressure in the field of sadness. Um, but then also for me, it's very good to observe, when do I spin stories, like in my case, in that case, maybe like the victimhood story, where I dig like a sadness hole deeper, and I spin stories, and that's why I'm not getting out of the sadness. I'm feeding the sadness. I'm giving food to the wolf of the sadness, and the wolf gets bigger and bigger, but it's not productive. And this is for me like a very important distinction. Like, I feel my emotions, I have love and compassion, I let memories coming up, like memories which were very, very sweet, where so much love was, where I get so sad that this is over, for example, in that case. Or memories where I felt sad because I was not seen, not heard. It was not aligned. I didn't feel that he was interested in my insights, what I'm seeing, or that my help or support, what I wanted to bring in the relationship, was appreciated at all. So there are also many situations where a lot of sadness comes, for example, it was not appreciated, and then it makes me sad. And there is, for example, with that example, there is this healing. Yes, I feel the sadness, but then the belief I was not appreciated as I deserve, for example. If I feed this belief again and again and again, then I create like a loop, because it's just a belief. And it can also cause anger then, and frustration and other emotions. But it's good to observe and to see, and how do I continue. But it's not good for me, for my healing process of transforming and letting go sadness, if I feed again and again a belief to have a confirmation of a certain story. And then the hole gets deeper. You know what I mean? And then there is this other aspect about sadness, like in a collective or in societies, where I feel, how is sadness really welcome? And I know, for example, I had issues with sad people. Like, my mom has a depressed structure since I can think, and it always felt very heavy, and I was rejecting it, and I didn't want to be in her field. But I also, as a child, you can't really fully escape. I didn't want to feel this heaviness. I didn't want to have that close, and there was for me also this neediness, and I didn't want it. And I noticed when I was working in a psychiatric hospital, I was working for around 5 years. Also, I was very interested in working with people, who have psychosis, schizophrenic stuff going on, aggressive behavior, like problems with social behavior, da da da. But when people were there with a depressed structure, where somehow depression was in, I didn't so much like to work with them closely. So there was also this no in the outside. I was rejecting it in the outside, because I rejected it inside of myself. I was not in peace, or didn't have a good relationship to my own sadness. So when people around were sad, it was like something I didn't feel comfortable with. And I don't know how you experience that for yourself, individually with your emotion, or with the emotion when other people bring it in the field. And I feel there's like, about sadness, we are not in harmony with sadness. I feel it's still at least what I remember living in Germany and growing up in Germany, and also what I see, like when I'm visiting now, there's still this thing like, don't be sad, be happy, take a happy pill, take some medication, do something around your sadness, buy another jeans, have some new shoes, don't be sad, feel something in you not to be sad. And a person who is sad and is feeling it or crying also, I mean, it's also like men or women, there's also different judgment around it, right? I think maybe for men it's even more difficult and even less acknowledged and accepted and integrated individually and collectively. But I feel like being not honest and truly transparently harmonized with these emotions, what we human have, is causing imbalance in the whole system individually and so in the society and in the system. Because if we try to suppress sadness individually and collectively, and if we do all these things not to feel sad, there's an imbalance and a disconnection and a separation from truth. And this can have harmful effects. And the same with fear, but fear I will maybe explore in a different video, because fear is a different one, different energy. But around sadness and just shining the light on sadness and also on other emotions, maybe where we individually are not connected to and not living fully through to transform it. How do we cope? And with the coping, what do we create in our field? And how does unhealthy structures get created internally and externally if we are not flowing also with sadness and transforming sadness in a true way and not in a coping way and suppressing way? And how does it affect me as an individual? Still does. I'm still learning. And even here, living in Peru and having very beautiful, conscious, open friends, no one judged me about my sadness and said, Ute, stop it now or something. Never, ever. No. They feel with me. They are maybe better than I am with feeling sadness. But still, my mind works in a way, I can see it like a program in the background. Don't be sad. Get your shit together. What would people think when they see you like that? Don't cry too much. I can sometimes cry also when I work, in a retreat. But if I cry too often, I get very judgmental. And also because I don't want to take, obviously, when I work with people, I don't want to take the space away from the people. I want that everyone has space in their healing process. And I take my own retreats where I go as a participant, or I have my own therapists, coaches, mentors, where I work on my own stuff. I don't need to do that when I'm facilitating with a group, right? But also I like to be authentic. So sometimes I allow myself and make space for it. But I still feel, maybe you feel it as well when I talk about it, I still have some judgment about it. Or when I wake up in the morning and I wake up with a sad feeling, there's, oh no, now you are again that sad, and I try to push it away, make it different until my wiser self comes. I know, like, no, sit down and give it some time and space and feel it. Where in my body do I feel it? Okay, there's this heaviness, in the belly. There's some pressure in my solar plexus. It goes up here, it ties up here. And then I work with color, texture, sound. I go back in childhood memories. When did I feel that the first time? In which moments in my life do I feel that? Does it want to say something, and so on. So I have different tools where I work with myself, but I also offer in sessions with other people. And I need to remind myself and make some space for me to feel that. And I think that's the way of being true and honest to self, and being true and honest and also to the outside world. And yeah, the intention with this video just has been being more open about feelings and the relationship to the certain feeling individually and collectively or in the society. And there's also the aspect, of course, historically. We are the sum of our ancestors. And everything what they didn't dissolve, what they didn't heal, we bring here also in the world to heal and feel true. And depending where you're from, you might have more trauma and more not expressed and fully healed emotional legacy. Legacy, is it the word, I think, in English? And sometimes maybe there's less. But that's also a different layer of working through in order to be more free, more light, and more present, and less navigated from old burdens, old suffering. So we need to feel it through to liberate it. And yeah, interesting is also sometimes what the Shibibo say about sadness. It's also, they also, I met many maestros who also, or some maestros, who also, they say, stop crying, don't be sad. You know, I also think it's so interesting, and they have so much trauma from their past, you know, how they were treated from the missionaries, from the people who came, you know, into Peru and telling them, here you have to go to the church, you can't do anymore your work with plant medicine, this is brujeria, this is black magic, this is not good, you have to stop that, or we put you as slaves or kill you or whatever, you know. I mean, you know, how they lost their villages, how they were disconnected from nature, from their beliefs, how they were disconnected from their families, you know, to weaken them. And there was also a lot. I don't have to go in that, but it's also interesting to see often how they are related to sadness, you know, where I also feel there is it's important for them also to heal. And I guess it's in many cultures, and I would be very interested to hear, you know, from different cultures, how is the relationship to sadness? How do people feel sadness, you know? How do they go through it? How do they face it? Do they go in the cave? Do they go somewhere in the hut? Do they feel it alone? Do they feel it in community? And I know, you know, sometimes people also in community, they are singing together, they are crying, they are screaming to release it together. And some maybe do it more in an individual process. And I think both is important, individually and collectively. Let's face this energy and release it and feel it together, but in a way that we don't spin and create again and again a story and we get there caught up, in a way that we are open and can release the emotion, you know, without bypassing and lying to ourselves or whatever. So I think it's quite interesting. I almost said it's fucking interesting. And it is, right? If we go more and more in it. I think it's interesting for me, and I feel there's so much more for me to explore than I have over the last years. Okay, it was quite long. Ciao. Thank you for listening, and I hope something was resonating or supporting you also in your process.